Alright, Shalom, I'm back. This is part 2, and I was speaking about this woman right here. This is a good book to look into. It's basically explaining about who the so-called African American really are on this land. Of course, you have to read into it and find out where you fit into it. Because just like anything else, anybody that's not you is going to paint a picture that's going to include them into your picture. Just for consideration. I'm just saying, consider. See where I left off. I was talking about the document, the STK Act of 1666, the Dumb Diverses. And basically the Dumb Diverses, it claimed that it held perpetual slavery over the so-called African Americans. They called them Saracens, and I forgot the other word to use, but you can go to video part 1, check it out. And I suggest you do listen to a video part 1 of this video to catch up. But then I talked about the how the word of the Most Highest actually really relates to real life. Everything in the scriptures is relating to real life. It talks about the supernatural side as well. But for the most part, it's talking about what I'm talking about right now, the real life application of how to be a creditor versus being a debtor. You were created a creditor from the beginning. And you never lost that creditor status, only through missing the mark and getting away from the laws, statutes, and commandments of the Most High. We were subjugated under color of law. Now he's waking us up, and by let's say by their obligation, by necessity, they have to tell the so-called African American who they are, what your rights are, and who you really are. And this is by the dictates of the Most High as well. So you don't have to keep talking about the curses come to the blessings, the creditor side. That's your right anyway. And they acknowledge this by necessity. This is not me making this up. Then Webster, who happened to I don't know his nationality. Maybe he's Caucasian, European. I don't know, but he was known as a reputable educator, and that's why even to this day the Webster dictionary is used. But he was also a man who apparently used scripture as well. So let's see here. 1828 Webster's American English Dictionary, it says creditor, noun, Latin C creed. It says 1, a person to whom a sum of money or other thing is due. So part of video 1 I was talking about how it's already been determined by LaSara, who said that my safety retirement, I'm using this for educational purposes, using myself in order to allow you to see and evaluate and allow you to look and research yourself, that you can see who you are and exercise your rights according to who you are on this land. It says a person to whom a sum of money or other thing is due by obligation. They said they were issuing my safety retirement by obligation and by promise. This is what. So in other words, they said they were basically telling me I'm the creditor. A person to whom a sum of money or other thing is due by obligation, promise, or in law. Properly, one who gives credit in commerce, but in a general sense, one who is a just claim for money. And then money is gold and silver coin. And I'm going to tell you why the original law, which was the law of the land, is still in effect, even according to Webster. I'm going to show you that in a little while. It said correlative to debtor. In a figurative sense, one who has a just claim to services. And also, this woman here, who says she's the private attorney for the Vatican's Pope, also stated, according to, she says she represents the Vatican and the Pope. They basically said by necessity, you do have right to services because all services is already paid for. And then also you have the right to discharge debt, being in your proper capacity as a creditor, to allow them to discharge their debts, basically from the positive side as a creditor. And also receive services by the discharge of those debts, which is our, and they, maybe if I don't have it in here, I'll go back over their document and add some more stuff that she had said. It said creditors have buried memories and debtors to one who believes, not used. And also, just once again, consider nobody is giving you rights. These are your rights that you already have. You already have unalienable right. They just acknowledging that you have these rights and telling you that you have these rights. Then this is Black Law's Dictionary. What is a creditor? A person to whom a debt is owing by another person, called the debtor. MOHR versus Elevator Company, 40 Minnesota. Everybody's got 40 MINN. 34341 North. W1074. Wolverton v. Taylor Company, 43111. Period. App. Period. 424. Semicolon. Insurance Company versus Meekers, 37 NJ Law 300. Walsh versus Miller, 51 Ohio Street, 462 38 NE 381. The foregoing is the strict legal sense at the term, but in a wider sense it means one who has a legal right to demand and recover from another a sum of money on any account whatever, and hence may include the owner of any right of an action against another, whether arising on contract or for a tort, a penalty, or a forfeiture. Keith versus Heiner, 63 Art, 244, 38 South W, SW 13. Bongard versus Block, 81 111 1S6, 25 AM, Rep 276. Chalmer versus Sheehy, 132 Cal, 45964 PAC, 70984 AM. STREP 62 semicolon Piersdorf versus Jorges, 86 WIS period 128 56 NW 735 39 AM STREP 881 classification. It says by necessity the Vatican's Pope Francis through his private attorney created a document being deciphered correctly. It said created a document, and then I said basically it must be deciphered correctly. Verified the so-called African, because you got to verify it and decipher it according to who you are. In truth, is indeed the jure American with unalienable right and heir on this continent, South and North America, who has been subjugated for over 150 years ago. The first document was Civil Orders, June 10th, 2014. Most of us never heard of that, though, including myself. I never heard about any of that. It says addressing the owners, officers, executors, agents, actors, and affiliations for the corporate United States, Inc. Quote. It says, quote, American Negroes have in the past been considered U.S. citizens. Because that is the only citizenship they were ever granted after the Civil War. A grave travesty of justice that resulted in them having only civil rights, which are only privileges granted by the U.S. Congress instead of the natural and unalienable rights. Because remember, under the Act of 1871, there really is no quote-unquote Congress. These are just people under a private corporation saying that they're this and they're saying that they're not a government. They're a corporation. See, this section right here actually told who the so-called Negroes, the so-called African American, the so-called Indian, all these different things they called us, who we really are. Listen for those who have an ear. It says, American Negroes have in the past been considered U.S. citizens because this is the only citizenship they were ever granted after the Civil War, a grave travesty of justice that resulted in them having only civil rights, which are only privileges granted by the U.S. Congress instead of the natural and unalienable rights. Here it is. They are really heir to. Nowhere else in this document do they say anybody else is an heir to anything except us. Instead of the natural and unalienable right, they are heir to. They were also claimed as chattel backing the depths of the United States prohibition, abolishing slavery and peonage. I say refer back to U.S. Article 6. A prompt correction is available from the organic states by the proclamation. The people in the organic states are granted full and immediately recognizable status as American nationals, owned all the natural and inalienable rights of any other organic state citizen, no matter which geographical defined state they may inhabit on the land. So they associated the American nationals with the so-called Negroes. Said, and these American nationals are owed all the natural and unalienable rights of any other organic state citizen, no matter which geographical defined state they may inhabit on the land. The only exceptions are those residents born inside the borders of the insular states, Districts of Columbia, Guam, Puerto Rico, etc. That's the corporation, who must self-declare. You see, but you was never born inside of a corporation. It's impossible to be born inside of a corporation. That's their doing. Who must self-declare their status under Article 15 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Note, the first civil order mentioned and recognized our de jure status being heirs with an unalienable right, being de jure Americans. It says Civil Orders, July 4th, 2014. Once again, this is another document that most of us, including myself, never heard anything about. Basically until very recently. Was it this year? According to their calendar. It says all those estates and well, they named it this way. All those capital E, lowercase s, T-A-T-E-S, and all cap estates erroneously believed to represent the American states and American state citizens, and which were conveyed by fraud and legal deceit to the United States of America minor, defined under their definition 28 U.S.C. 30215, and more recently the city-state of the United Nations, are revenued without exception to the geographically defined American states and American state citizens, where they shall remain in perpetuity as such belonging to the rightful and lawful beneficiaries. All legal fiction entities, however structured and named after the American states and American state citizens, are returned to them and their control, free and clear of any debt, promise, encumbrance, or obligation alleged against them as a result of false claims made in their behalf by officers of the United States of America, Inc. and the United States, Inc., or by any foreign officials operating the United States of America minor, defined under 28 U.S.C. 30215, or the United Nations, city-state, falsely claiming to represent them or have jurisdiction over them. I understand all of that. See, because I have the right to say 28 U.S.C. 3002, because that's not, I'm overstanding that. but that's their own definition. So I have the right to use that. I have the right to say that. That's the way for you to have to do research to find out who they say they are. It says, we note that the current circumstances in the past, the result of criminal acts engaged in 150 years ago, which resulted in the commercial enslavement of African Americans who were summarily claimed as chattels back in U.S. government debt in the wake of the Civil War, despite of every act of obligation and declaration of the prohibition against both peonage and slavery. It has been the policy of the United States Corporation defined by 28 U.S.C. 300215, which is public knowledge, to enslave its citizens and to operate as a rogue state among nations of the world. Instead of freeing the de jure Americans, who were personated under the color of law as African Americans, the sum total result of the Civil War was vastly expanded public sector ownership of slaves, giving rise to the outrageous and improper claims that have been made against the American states and American state citizens that we are dealing with today. Any action of the probate tribunals operating in maritime jurisdictions making claim upon actual real assets of the similar name American nationals in behalf of legal fiction missing persons. So that goes back to refer back to the Sestiki Act of 1666. Basically, when they declared everybody missing, all you have to do is give a public proclamation stating that you are indeed alive in full life, being yourself. Owned by the United States of America, Inc., United States Federal Reserve, or any franchise or agencies thereof, are similarly rendered null and void. These civil orders command and require the return. See, they're talking to their people, their corporations, the owners of them. We are the creditors. We're not under the command of any. We're not under the command of corporations nor any other person. We're the heirs on this land. We have unalienable right on this land by their own admission. These civil orders command and require the return of all titles to land, homes, properties, and businesses which has been held under the color of law by the Federal Reserve doing business as the United States of America, Inc., and their bankruptcy trustee, the Secretary of the Treasury of Puerto Rico, and the administrative agents, including the custodian of alien property and the Comptroller General. This is all separate registrations under the Shepherdstown Act and the Selective Service Act. So you got to do your own research though to see what all this stuff means. But most important, go back to what they already told you. Considering they already told you that the so-called African American, but you being in your proper capacity, are the heirs on this land with unalienable right, natural unalienable right. They already told you that. That's who you are. That's your right. They acknowledge that. So all the rest of the stuff, just research and learn for yourself. This is all registrations under the Shepherdstown Act and the Selective Service Act of American nationals and their progeny by agents of the United States of America Minor, DBA, the United States of America, Inc., and its various state franchises, and subsequently maintained by state franchises of the United Nations and the International Monetary Fund, are invalid as a class for anything but traditional recording purposes, and the benefits of any securities based in whole or in part upon these and any other involuntary or undisclosed registration such as vehicle registration. Are privately property benefiting the individual American nationals who are the lawful entitlement holders of all commercial vessels operated under their given names by any corporations providing United States Inc. defined under 28 U.S.C. See, I put the 28 U.S.C. in there so you can research. This is an educational video. So I put the 28 U.S.C. 300215 that you can look it up and see their own definition for who they are, that they put themselves. It said by them. It said providing services, including banks. All vessels in commerce operated under the names of American nationals are owned full treaty and trusteeship obligations from the United States of America Minor, defined under, once again, 28 U.S.C. 30215 by them and the United Nations and all franchises and agencies which these nation states operate worldwide. It said these civil orders command performance delivering unto seizure upon the land, including return of real assets and property owned by American nationals, free of claim, debt, and encumbrance created under conditions of fraud, breach of trust, and breach of commercial contract. Reference sections 204 through 228 under civil orders document final judgment. And then also this also for those who say that according to the birth certificates and the mothers signing that birth certificate has enslaved the children, they've acknowledged here. It says parents are not enabled to indept, pledge, conscript, or otherwise enter their children into any form of bondage, debt, peonage, or enslavement. Any and all relinquishments of the individual or parental rights must be voluntarily, fully disclosed, completely enumerated, fully discussed, and the real natures and actual identities of all parties to all custodial, commercial, or grant contract of any kind whatsoever. Like any agency appointment, must in all detail be fully revealed and disclosed, explicitly discussed, explicitly agreed upon, and voluntarily entered into by all parties. Any contract failing these requirements are merely being presumed to exist via tacit agreement, third-party representations, or presumed benefits are null and void. Then she had there, notice to agent is notice to principal, notice to principal is notice to agent. Then I said 858 through, well, not I said this, but this is on our document, 858 minus through 863. Then it says number 7. Are you telling, this is her words, I may have changed something, I'll let you know if I changed it just because I didn't like the word that she used. Are you telling me that I don't owe any taxes? This is what she had put. And then it said, how is that possible? This is basically what she put. And then she put, it costs me money to provide so-called government services. I put the so-called because they're not a government according to their own admission. So-called government services when it is a corporation. The question was posted, what if taxes is not paid by men and women? How will the schools be funded? And the fire departments and libraries stay open? That's what she asked. Her answer was, the fact is that all United States service companies' service contracts are between states and other incorporated entities and not states and people. Technically, it is literally impossible for a living man or woman to owe any taxes for any services provided by the United States Service Company. Basically, when a living man or woman, quote unquote, pays taxes, is voluntary. This is very important information to the Americans. Foreign welfare recipients, Americans, are considered to be foreigners with respect to the United States of America minor. And anyone receiving welfare benefit is considered to be a U.S. citizen. However, because their programs have been funded with American credit obtained under conditions of fraud and often have been entirely paid for by the recipients as a group, as in the case of Social Security, some other compelling basis would have to be established before the United States of America minor could convincingly claim American welfare recipients as U.S. citizens. See, they have a such thing called that they created under the corporation called the gold signature, and that's something that they give their citizens. But in reality, it's structured after what they're actually doing to the de jure Americans. What's that song? I call them the Isley brothers, but it wasn't the Isley brothers. They're twins. And he said they have the Midas touch. Everything they touch turns to gold. What's that song called? So literally, that's what they're doing. When they have you to sign something, because you're the one that produced the wealth through your signature, because you are the de jure Americans.